Call the regular council meeting for Monday, February 3rd to order. We do have all council members in attendance this evening. We acknowledge that this land is the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of First Nations, comprised of the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi peoples, and of the Huron-Wendat peoples. We value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations and of all the original peoples of Turtle Island who have been living and working on the land from time immemorial. If you are able, please stand for our national anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command.
Car ton bras sait porter l'épée, il sait porter la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits.
God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Okay, welcome here this evening, everybody. I would like to go to Director Malandrucolo for a closed meeting report.
Mayor Bondi, through you, on January 20, 2025 at 4:15 p.m., Council moved into closed section as permitted to do so pursuant to Section 239(2)C of the Municipal Act 2001 to discuss a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of the land by the municipality or a local board. On February 3rd, 2025 at 5:15 p.m., at 5 o'clock p.m., Council moved into close as permitted to do so pursuant to Section 239(2)C of the Municipal Act 2001 to discuss a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. On February 3rd, 2025 at 5:30 p.m., Council moved into close as permitted to do so by Section 239(2)B and D of the Municipal Act 2001 to discuss personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and labor relations or employee negotiations. And that is the extent of my report.
Drucolo, any declarations of conflicts of interest from members of the council this evening? Seeing none, if you find yourself in conflict later, just let us know. I need a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the published agenda for Monday, February 3rd, moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor Allard. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Adoption of the minutes from the January 13th regular council meeting. Moved by Councillor Mady, supported by Councillor McGuire-Blaze. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Needing a mover and a seconder for the special council meeting minutes walkthrough for November 25th, our budget walkthrough. Moved by Councillor Guerin, supported by Councillor Mady. All in favor? And that is carried. Needing a mover and a seconder for the special council meeting minutes for December 9th, 2024, budget deliberations, moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor McGuire-Blaze. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor, and that is carried. Now the real exciting stuff. Going to public presentations, we have the Chief Librarian, Adam Craig, and the Chair of the Essex County Library Board, Joe Bicchetti, here to present the highlights in 2024 and the future plans for 2025. Welcome, and just go back to we don't have a new town hall yet, so just go back to our delegation podium and turn on the mic, and the both of you have 10 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Bondi and members of council and staff administration. Thank you for having us this evening. The purpose of tonight is, again, just a brief overview of the good things that the library board are doing. One of the things that we wanted to accomplish this term of council was develop a strategic plan and engage in the community and listen to the residents and what the needs and wants were. And so I'm very proud to say that we have an excellent board, board members consisting of 7, representing all the municipalities. And we're moving in the right direction in terms of really putting emphasis on making the libraries a community hub. But also, we want to make sure that members of council, because you guys are the front line, you'd get the calls. We want to make sure that you understand the good things that we're doing. And so we wanted to do like a little tour and visit all the local municipalities to share the good news. So this evening, we have Adam Craig here, who will kind of do a quick overview of the good things that are happening in the town of Essex in your library branches. So thank you again for having us, and I'll turn it over to Adam.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, and thank you so much for having us tonight. Ostensibly talking about the 25 to 30 strategic plan. What I'd like to do to get started, I'm sorry, who's controlling the slideshow? Okay. Can we go to the first slide, please? Before we look ahead at what's going on with the strategic plan, I'm going to take a minute to go back over some of the stuff that happened last year. The big sort of headline news was that we saw a dramatic increase in program attendance in 2024. Excuse me. Between 23 and 24, we saw a 62% system-wide increase in attendance at our programs, going from just over 47,000 attendees to 77,000. Here in Essex alone, so Harrow, McGregor, and the Essex branch, we saw a 51% increase. We went from having 8,000 attendees to 12. So that's a notable increase, and it says that the community still appreciates their libraries. We extended staffed hours at the Harrow branch to improve accessibility and to meet the community demand. Anecdotally, when I started with the library in 22, the very first thing I heard was from the citizens of Harrow asking for more hours, and we were able to make good on that in 24. We started with our Green Bench initiative in partnership with Schlegel Villages Long-Term Care to create meaningful intergenerational connections. We had the grand reopening of the Tecumseh branch after just over $1 million in renovations. We created a more welcoming and modern space out of a space that needed a little bit of TLC. We introduced video games and Wonder Books. Wonder Books are sort of books that read themselves for kids that might be struggling with literacy. We ran the Pitch In with ECL program, which really pushed the limits of what libraries are about, but I think cemented our place as a community-involved organization. And then finally, and what I'm going to spend a bit of time talking about tonight, was our new strategic plan. We get the next slide, please. At the very heart of our new strategic plan is this reworked mission statement. The Essex County Library is a space of discovery for all at the heart of our communities. And this, in turn, is built on by the vision. Next slide, please. Which emphasizes our role as a trusted community partner that enriches lives by providing responsive services, fostering connections, ensuring access to knowledge and entertainment. We believe that by adapting to our community's needs, we can continue to be a cornerstone of the county. Next slide, please. The plan is built on 6 guiding principles: responsiveness and adaptability. We intend on staying ahead of the evolving community needs. Service excellence. We provide absolutely the best customer service we can possibly provide in everything that we do. We put the communities first. We prioritize partnerships and public engagement. Accessibility. We aim to ensure equitable access for all. And I should be a little more clear. Accessibility, we're not just talking about meeting the needs of individuals in the community with different physical abilities, but accessibility for every member of the community. Empowerment is another core value. We aim to help individuals learn, grow, and succeed. And finally, lifelong learning by supporting education at all ages and stages of life. These values, these core values, guide our strategy and help us to create an inclusive and forward-thinking library system. Next slide, please. So we've identified 4 main objectives for the period from 2025 to 2030, and this will drive our work substantially over the next 5 years. Enhancing community engagement and relevance by strengthening partnerships and expanding our outreach efforts, and this is already well underway. We aim to foster lifelong learning and empowerment by providing learning opportunities through resources and programming. We aim to improve accessibility and inclusivity by expanding services to underserved populations in underserved areas of the county. And we aim to transform the library into a vibrant third space. And that means when you're not at home and you're not at work, we want to see you in your library. So these are huge. I mean, these are very broad, sweeping objectives for us. So can I get the next slide, please? How we aim to achieve this: build stronger partnerships with schools, businesses, and organizations, increase our outreach efforts, expand our adult and digital literacy programs to help people develop new skills for career growth, work with local experts to offer free community learning opportunities. We aim to improve digital access for every member of the community. We want to redesign our physical spaces to make modern, flexible, and accessible branches. And we aim to support community-led initiatives, giving residents space and resources to connect and create. Next slide, please. And so that's why I thought it was appropriate to end with this, the question, what can we do for you? Because we see this plan as a shared opportunity. And that's why we're doing this sort of world tour across the county. Do you see opportunities for collaboration? Are there community needs that we haven't addressed that you could see a need for? How can we ensure that this library system serves every single resident of the county? And that's that. Thank you very much. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
I'm so excited you're here, big supporter. Questions, comments from members of council? And Mr. Craig, can you just explain how many hours Harrow did increase?
Harrow went from 17 to 42 hours. So that's a pretty dramatic increase. And what that did was it brought the Harrow branch back up to a service level that is comparable with other similarly sized branches in the system. For a bit of context, before the pandemic, the hours were cut dramatically. Harrow's been a full-time branch for a long, long time, and those hours were cut. And mechanisms were put in place to make it a self-service branch, which the community did not really respond to. So we made it a point to get back to a reasonable number of hours, and the response has been overwhelmingly positive.
How can somebody get a card so they can access the self-service services?
Come see us. Bring a couple of pieces of ID and visit your local branch, and we'll hook you up with a card.
I just want to end to thank everyone for allowing us here, and also to state that we have a very strong active board members. We have a book club that we got together, and you don't see that at these committee levels. And as well as we did a recent tour of all the branches. So very active board members that want to do what's right for our local region. And I want to just leave you all with the challenge, and I'll leave it in the mayor's hand to make sure that everyone has an application. If you don't already have a library card, our goal after this little tour of all the local municipalities is to have 100% of all of our county elected officials to have a library card. So I'll leave that responsibility to your mayor, and she'll process, be able to get that if you don't have that. Again, thank you again.
Councilor Verbeek.
The changes have been visible. It's really, really nice in the last year or so to see the improvements and the efforts to put out more outreach programs, a lot more community engagement. It was becoming really doom and gloom for a few years, listening to cuts in hours, cuts in services. And as an avid library user and 8 grandchildren that have always been engaged in the programs, and that when all those cuts were going on, we really suffered. And so this has been really nice to see the last year or two with this current board.
Looking for a mover and a seconder to receive the presentation by Adam Craig, Chief Librarian, and Joe Bicchetti, Chair of the Essex County Library Board. Councillor Hammond, Councillor Allard, any questions? All in favor? And that is carried. Enjoy your evening. Nothing under unfinished business. Reports from administration, building and bylaw enforcement, 2025-01, biannual bylaw enforcement report. Who's up first? Mr. Deemer. Okay.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of this report is to illustrate the enforcement conducted among various municipal bylaws between July to the end of December 2024. The bylaw team remains uniform in its enforcement process from the beginning stage of voluntary compliance to issuing notices of violation, and in cases of continued noncompliance, serving owners with municipal work orders and/or provincial offense act charges. Bylaw enforcement has conducted investigations on residential, agricultural, and commercial properties throughout the municipality as depicted in the chart below. A total of 291 potential violations were investigated during these 6 months. Of the 291 potential violations, 138 were based on complaints received from members of the public and/or council members. The additional 153 issues were investigated proactively. Of the 291 issues, 284 have been resolved and 7 remain actively investigated. For comparison purposes, the prior 6-month period has been included in the chart below as represented by the blue bars. The chart below shows a detailed breakdown of how the 138 complaints have been received. During this 6-month period, 40 complaints were received through Report a Problem platform, 64 were received by phone, 32 were received by email, and 2 were submitted in person. For comparison purposes, the prior 6-month period has been included in the chart below as represented by the blue bars. Specific enforcement. The chart below illustrates the specific, the specific enforcement of various municipal bylaws. The red bars depict active cases, and the green bars depict cases which were resolved to the satisfaction of bylaw enforcement standards. The bylaws shown in the chart below represent the most reported violations, however, do not reflect all 21 enforceable bylaws. Of the 291 investigated cases, 181 fall under Property Standards Bylaw 936. Property standards issues have a wide range. However, the main offenses consist of tall grass, weeds, and exterior property debris. As shown in the chart above, tall grass complaints are received in high quantity, and due to town policy, work orders do not need to be issued since bylaw enforcement can remedy the violation without delay. Debris violations can take more time to resolve due to work order timeframes, appeals, and property standards committee extensions, which postpone direct action from bylaw enforcement. Lastly, the final chart below depicts the enforcement regarding short-term rentals. Over this 6-month period, 3 investigations have been launched into unlicensed STR violations. Of these 3 cases, 2 have resulted in administrative penalties being issued. The data from the previous 6 months has been included in the chart below, shown in the blue for comparison. As always, the public is encouraged to use the town's Report a Problem online forums to submit complaints for investigation and documentation, and that link can be found below. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Comments from members of council to Mr. Deemer. Councillor Heyman.
Yes, and through you, Mayor. So there's quite a big difference here in our short-term rental enforcement. What can we attribute this to?
For you, Madam Mayor. We can really only speculate, but we'd like to think that it's due to our ongoing investigations every month. We believe that we've gotten to the bulk of the unlicensed STRs, and most are either in compliance now or have been licensed.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, it's nice to see the handle on the short-term rental complaints. It's also nice to see that very proactive, almost 50-50 proactive versus complaint driven, which is great. On the couple on things on the parking, I see the parking there. What would those majority of those parking complaints be?
Those are parked in a no parking zone. So whether it's just a no parking or the side switching month to month, those are the majority of the parking infractions.
Okay, further than that, then through the mayor. So it wouldn't be blocking someone's residential driveway. It'd be more uptown parking illegally or in zones that are no parking.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, that's correct. We do get the occasional blocked driveway, but those are usually received through complaint. But yeah, our proactive does mainly address no parking zones. However, if we see a bad blocked driveway, we will address it.
Lastly, through the chair, we break out tall grass from property standards. In most cases, it would not be the same thing.
You, Madam Mayor. It is. However, we do have a standalone tall grass bylaw. That's why it's it allows us different enforcement tools, which property standards does not. So that's why I break it apart. But it does fall under the property standards bylaw as well.
Please. And then I'll come back to you, Counselor Hammond, if there's no other counselors that haven't spoke yet.
Thank you through the chair. The ones that you're being proactive on, what kind of calls are those? Like, what are you being proactive on? Is it the parking? Is it the property standards, tall grass? What is it that we can say we're being proactive in this area?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, parking is definitely one of the biggest. However, tall grass and weeds, during the summertime, we were very proactive on tall grass and weeds. Property standards, we will address. However, we received the majority of those through complaint.
Go back to you, Counselor Hammond.
Parking issues, the complaints, is there a specific ward that stands out than others regarding the parking complaints? Is there one ward that gets more than others?
Mayor, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but Ward 1, I would say by far.
You, Mayor. I was just curious about any repeat offenders. Do we have a high number of repeat offenders, or has that number been reduced to, or it's pretty much just one-offs now?
Madam Mayor, are you speaking in terms of property standards or just in any violation? We do get the occasional one. Our repeat offenders investigation and enforcement comes much swifter, so the cases don't last near as long. But I would say that if I had to guess, I'd say around 5% would be repeat offenders.
Madam Mayor, just a question that I've had a lot of people recently come and talk to me about, and I know it's on the agenda coming up, but for the proactive approach with the snow removal of sidewalks in front of residential properties, I've had quite a few people asking, why isn't bylaw out here? Why aren't they? And I'm encouraging them to all do a report of problem. I'm just wondering if you would like to address any of that. I'm just why you wouldn't necessarily be proactive in it, or whether you are, I'm not sure.
You, Madam Mayor, our snow bylaw is written in a way that we have to wait until after 12 hours has elapsed to enforce. So if we get snow after 8 hours, that clock resets. We have to wait for the snow to end, and we can then enforce. However, we do have a voluntary compliance policy where we hand out notices. I'm sure you've gotten several calls about those. Those are a courtesy. We don't have to do that. It's a lot like tall grass. We could come in with a contractor, complete the work, and bill residents. However, we like to go with this approach for voluntary compliance. So as soon as that 12-hour clock ends after the snowfall and bylaws on shifts, we enforce right away. That usually make that our whole day afterwards.
For a motion that we receive the report.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so council receives quite a bit of calls from residents, taxpayers regarding certain things that bylaw covers. What recommendation could you give council to help bylaw do their job better? When we receive calls from residents, how would you like to see council facilitate that call? It would help make your job easier.
Through you, Madam Mayor, bylaw enforcement would love to get that call directly, whether it's through a report a problem to receive their contact information, or even just giving bylaw enforcement's direct extension. For this purposes, what we do requires a lot of confidentiality, which maybe you guys don't want to be involved in. However, it allows us to get a lot more detail about their specific complaints, addresses, and contact information, so that we can contact them back in the future as well.
Just further to that, if a person calls bylaw on somebody else, their name is kept confidential, because I think that's sometimes when people involve council, they're like, we don't want to call on my neighbor because we don't want my neighbor to find out that we called on them. Meanwhile, the entire process, I keep reassuring folks that it is confidential. And I do, I sound like a broken record a lot, saying, please go to report a problem. And a lot of people message us probably on social media. And if you have social media, you have an email address and you have internet. So you can do a report a problem. It does take a little bit of time, but you don't want to, say to your counselor, you don't want to have them do that for you because, they could be grocery shopping when they check your message and then they forget. So the other thing is you can get your confirmation number. Once you do the report a problem, get a confirmation number. If check your spam. If you don't see results that you would like to see, then that's when you would reach out to your ward rep. Okay. Councillor Allard, and then I'll seek a motion.
One question about the reporter problem. Is there anything we can do better as a council because when I speak to people, you tell them about reporter problem. Oh, I threw that one in last year. I'm not going to do it again this year. I've complained before and never had anything action. Is there anything that we can tell the people to get them to do it?
Little bit too. So I think if council is a united front, Councillor Allard, we have to try to be a united front, suggesting to people to get the confirmation number. Once sometimes I ask folks for the confirmation number, they don't always give it. So sometimes I believe, or it could be that they didn't actually follow up and do it. So, if you say, give me the confirmation number and, I'll be with you with this process, I think that's the best thing. I'm not sure if any other members of administration have suggestions. But tell them to do it, get the confirmation number. They can also call. If you read the report, so many people are still calling. So calling is still effective. Okay, looking for a mover and a seconder that the report be received for information. Councillor McGuire-Blaze, supported by Councillor Hammond. All in favor? Thank you for doing the tough job out there. I know some days it's not fun. Communications Report 2024 Community Policing Results Survey. And we'll go to our Manager of Communications, Mark Totorler, to walk us through this.
Thank you. Through the mayor. So good evening, everyone. In 2024, Council directed administration to conduct an online survey to reevaluate citizens' perceptions of the quality of policing provided by the town's contracted police service, the Ontario Provincial Police. This is in response to the initial police survey that was conducted in 2020. We would like to present a brief overview of the survey findings. Perfect. Next slide, please. So the goal of the survey was to understand how residents feel about the quality of policing in the town of Essex. The survey was conducted in November 2024 and followed the same structure as the 2020 survey to assess any changes in perceptions over time. Next slide, please. We used a mixed method approach combining numerical ratings with open-ended responses. The survey questions and methodology are the same as the 2020 survey. The aim was to capture both measurable data and detailed feedback from residents for a comprehensive outlook on the current perceptions of policing in the community. The survey was primarily online, with paper copies available at town facilities to ensure accessibility for all residents. The survey was promoted through organic and paid social media posts, newspaper ads, and the town website. Next slide, please. We received a total of 210 submissions, a decrease from the 308 responses received in 2020. It's important to note that the survey sample size only reflects approximately 1% of the total population of the town of Essex. Respondents were generally long-term residents, which likely provides valuable insight in the overall community. Next slide, please. The first of the three categories presented in the survey was related to the general satisfaction of residents. On average, respondents were somewhat dissatisfied with various aspects of policing. The lowest score was for visibility, including a strong concern about the lack of perceived visible patrols or presence in the community. Overall, there was a slight decrease in the category from the 2020 survey findings. The qualitative comments provided by survey respondents were categorized into 5 themes. These included visibility, where individuals noted a perceived lack of police presence, especially in neighborhoods. Traffic enforcement, where respondents cited concerns about speeding and reckless driving. Response time, where individuals expressed frustrations with slow responses. Community engagement, where positive feedback was noted related to community engagement, but some noted that more youth and mental health focus is needed. And the remaining comments were noted just general dissatisfaction. Next slide, please. The second survey category related to police interactions, and this was presented only to those who had direct interactions with the OPP over the last year. These individuals showed moderate satisfaction overall. Ease of contact scored the highest, but concerns about response times were still present. These findings are similar to the 2020 survey as well. Common themes for this section included overall service quality, where many expressed general satisfaction, while some noted that service quality didn't meet their expectations. Officer interactions, including both positive and negative interactions. Response time, where many noticed dissatisfaction with delays. And communication, where some noted difficulties in contacting the OPP or receiving updates. Next slide, please. The final survey category was related to community safety and crime perception, with a scale ranging from very unsafe to very safe. Despite feeling relatively safe, many respondents expressed concerns about increasing crime rates. The comments for this category were categorized into 5 general themes, including increased crime, where the perceived rise in crime rates are a concern for many. Visibility, where lack of perceived visible police presence was noted. Concerns related to traffic safety, including speeding, drunk driving, and pedestrian safety. Substance abuse, noting perceived link between drug use and crime. And general miscellaneous comments. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, while most residents feel safe, there are clear concerns regarding the perceived visibility, response times, and traffic enforcement. Overall, most respondents indicated that they feel safe or very safe in the town of Essex, even though many believe the crime rate has increased. In general, the survey findings are in line with the 2020 community policing results, with a slight increase in dissatisfaction across 3 categories. So thank you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them now.
Presenting that to us and for doing that again, Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate the report. It's really good. I think that the lack of visibility probably, I mean, that was partially through COVID, and I mean, I am seeing an increased visibility, especially as of late. My question though is to crime stats. Do we know where we were? Like, I don't know. I know we're not in New York where we can say this is up or that, but are our crime stats up year over year? Or are we tracking the same? Do we know that information?
Through the mayor, I don't have that information now. So the results presented in the report are just more so of the perceived crime rates from the respondents. So we definitely want to emphasize that these are the perceived thoughts of the individuals who participated in the survey, but we don't have any of that concrete data at the moment.
Pulled up the most recent report from the Police Service Board. I'll share that with council, and it goes through the details of the crime. So one thing that is new is that the Police Service Board is now Lakeshore in Tecumseh, and it meets in Tecumseh, and it's also live streamed. So that's something that members of council and members of the public can go on our website. If you even go on our council calendar and you search for Essex County OPP Detachment Board North, you will see our meeting minutes, and you should see the video. The video is actually not there from December, but I'll get on that. But you can see it. You can go to the town of Tecumseh and see it as well. Councillor Hammond.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, just one question on that. Does that mean that Police Service Board's meetings are available for Leamington, Kingsville as well? Because I'm just thinking of the residents who have to send their kids over there every day. If they're able to look in and see what kind of policing is being done on the neighborhoods that they send their kids to. That's all I was asking for. Thanks.
Oops, sorry, everybody. I forgot to turn my mic off. I will ask that. We'll make a note to ask if they live stream them. Councillor Verbeek.
Madam Mayor, to you, Madam Mayor. So are you Is the board still receiving the stats monthly for our specific municipality? So, okay, so we could see, we could pull up some reports from 2020 and see if there's a big difference in the crime, the crime rates, because you would be receiving that monthly, right?
Thank you through the chair. So seeing this, seeing this, this survey come back where, residents are feeling a little bit uneasy, I'm wondering if now is an appropriate time to direct administration into looking at other alternatives. Since last week we had a meeting, committee of the whole, and it was disclosed that we don't have to wait for a contract to be up. We just have to give a certain amount of time. We can look into how we could go about looking at alternative policing now. And so if our town, the approval rate of the OPP, let's just say satisfaction rate, is declining, maybe now is a time to take a look and see what else is out there, or to see if what are we getting with our OPP, and take a look into what does our contract actually say. And I know that we don't have that information, but I feel like our council at some point was given that information. We didn't make, council of the day did not make a decision on switching from Essex Police to OPP without that information. Somewhere there is information that says what we're going to get and how much it's going to cost. So I feel like I keep pushing it, but I feel like we need that information. And so I would like to see a decision today made to either ask for that information or ask for additional information. What else, what other options do we have?
So at the committee of the whole meeting last month, council did ask for some specifics regarding the services that were provided by the OPP, and administration committed to having a special meeting to do that. So in the next couple of months, there'll be a special meeting booked where that information will come to council for your review.
Aaron, and then I'm going to go to my youth rep. I saw him first, and then I'll come to you, but I'm excited that.
Thanks to the mayor. Yeah, I'm open to all those ideas. Councilman Garbely just talked about, we talked about our last meeting. I think we need to be cautious about the sample size. It's 1%. It's very small. And of that 1%, the commonality in the whole thing is it's mainly Ward 1, mainly people that are between the ages of 50 plus and lived here for 20 years. So they have a voice, but it is only 1%, and the high majority of them are coming from Ward 1. I mean, this is basing on 2020 numbers, and in 2019, Maclean Magazine had Essex ranked 6th safest community in all of Canada. So it's something we have to look at, which is good tonight, but I'm still a little unsure of the sample size.
So what I was going to say, I'm not going to lie, but I also think that the only people that are going to really leave a review on the survey are going to be dissatisfied people usually. So I would say also kind of take it with a grain of salt just because of that smaller size. I don't know if that's exactly accurate, but that's my interpretation.
Keeping item. My mic, I've missed it a few times, but if you notice that you're not on mic, turn it off and turn it on. Or acknowledge me, because you just had a moment and you weren't on TV. All right. You want to say it all over again? We can say it all over again. Okay. Other questions, comments from members of council? We do have a motion to receive the report, and then we will have that meeting at the committee of the whole. Councilor Verbeek.
More comment through you, Madam Mayor. Our youth counselor, Cole Foster, just really good point and very observant of you. The many years that we did talk about and try to bring forward the idea of doing a police survey, that was a lot of the pushback we heard from, OAPSB, et cetera, was that a lot of the respondents would mostly be people that had to be for a serious concern, as opposed to the majority of the community that was, content.
Is that a move to accept the report for information as well? Supported by Counselor Mady, and all in favor? And that is carried, and thank you for doing that. It is a good benchmark, and more to come on that file. Moving on to Fire and Rescue Services Grant Funding, Ontario Nuclear Emergency Management Program, and we do have Chief Pilon with us. Welcome.
Good evening, Council, and through you, Madam Mayor. Just to give you a little background on this grant, in 2024, Ontario established a nuclear emergency management program to support municipalities with nuclear-related responsibilities. Essex is identified in the PNURP, which is a Provincial Nuclear Emergency Response Plan, as a host municipality for a nuclear emergency at the Fermi 2 plant. This marks the second year of the funding. In 2024, the funds were used to install an emergency backup generator at the Essex Sports Complex. This could serve as an accommodation site during not just a nuclear emergency, but any type of emergency. For this year's funding, we plan to use the funding to update the supplies at our primary and secondary EOCs, which are Essex Fire Station 1 and Essex Fire Station 2. We want to ensure effective response during a nuclear emergency and other emergencies. Additionally, the funds will help acquire a mobile shelter unit with heating capabilities, improving operations at the reception center during a nuclear exercise by providing flexibility for command, decontamination, and staging areas. The goal is to ensure Essex is fully prepared to activate both the emergency operating centers and a reception center in any emergency. When these types of grants become available, we try and prioritize multifunctional items and supplies that can support any type of emergency, not just a nuclear incident. This funding is actually scheduled annually as up to $50,000 to support these efforts. So hopefully next year this funding will become available to us as well. And I can answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Chief Pilon. It was good to see you also do recent water and ice rescue. I like to see all of the firefighters all trained up on that. Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Great report. I'm glad to see that we're getting some funding for this, and I know it was quite an eye-opener this year when we did our emergency preparedness training, and I know I left feeling we need to do more, and I'm glad that we've got some funding coming in. I hope that we can get more and keep getting ourselves prepared. Being designated as that release station, really, I know that that's it was really honestly, I was really quite impressed with the training, and I hope we can continue to lobby to get more money for you guys to be prepared and provide that service that you guys provide.
Any further questions, comments from members of council? Seeing none, need a mover and a seconder that the Fire Rescue Services report entitled Grant Funding be received and that council for the town of Essex was awarded the grant funding from the Ontario Nuclear Emergency Management Program in the amount of $50,000 and that council approve the 2025 post-budget approval for the capital project of the nuclear emergency preparedness supplies in the amount of $50,000 to be funded with $50,000 from the grant funding received from the Ontario Nuclear Emergency Management Program. Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor Hammond. I'm just wondering if we can also send a letter to thank them that we got the money. And all in favor? That is carried. Environmental Services. Thank you for coming, Chief. Environmental You too. Environmental Services, private water lines and public right-of-ways. This was a report that council requested in the last term of council. If anybody wants to go through it, Director Gerard can talk about it. If not, looking for a mover and a seconder to receive for information. Moved by Councillor Verbeek, supported by Councillor Guerin. Any questions? Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Do we often see this? I know that I remember one coming up when we first were elected where somebody wanted to run a water line along the side of the road that was in our right of way. Is this a commonplace in our municipality or just something that rarely happens?
Through the mayor, it rarely happens. It's not something that we see very often. In that instance where we did have somebody that wanted to run it parallel through the right of way, we did enter into an agreement with them to cross perpendicularly, so that agreement exists as well as the water crossing. But this is very, very infrequent. We don't see this very often.
In favor? And that is carried. Parks and Facilities Sale of Property at Bryan Avenue West. Looking, Director Morissette, if you want to walk us through this.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. As part of the surplus process that we've been working on for quite a few years, this is to formalize the process that in post session, council received offers that were presented, and for the 3 lots on Bryan Avenue, the town accepted an offer for $900,000 for the sale of those properties. So this is to formalize the process that this is all taken care of, and the transfer of land should happen at the end of March.
For a mover and a seconder that the sale of properties at Bryan Avenue West be received, the report be received. Moved by Deputy Mayor, supported by Councillor Allard. Questions or comments to this report? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Economic Development 2025, Building Report and Development Overview, the annual summary for 2024. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the annual development report be received for information. Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor Guerin. Questions to the report? I just have one. I asked it in advance. Director Chadwick, just wondering how many additional dwelling units we've had in recent years. I think the numbers are pretty exciting.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. Happy to report in 2024, 15 total ADUs, additional dwelling units, were built, 13 of which are detached ADUs. Prior to that, in 2023, very similarly, 14 ADUs were built, 5 of which were detached. In 2022, where we kickstarted this project in its entirety, the total at that time was 9 ADUs, 5 were detached. And the prior years were quite low, around 3 ADUs total. So every year we continue to see a rise in interest in building these ADUs, both attached and detached. Thank you.
And at some point, the former AUD search, that's going to come live at some point as well? Can you speak to that, please?
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. Yes, so we are currently working on the data set and cleaning up a lot of discrepancies we've seen so that the residents, when the platform on our GIS is fully launched, they will not see any, or they should see less false negatives and less false positives. So we are aiming for a launch this spring. The GIS platform we call ADU search at this point, but Mayor Bondi is correct to point out the new corporation is called Resumate. They have been retained to assist the town of Essex with that. The GIS tool is available, and our GIS technician, Kevin Huff, has been working very hard with Resumate to get that up and running, like I said, to clean up that data. So stay tuned for more information from our manager of communications on the public launch of that.
Through you, Mayor. Yeah, this was a neat, I've been liking to watch these continued development reports as they come through. You know, we got to see the big spike there when we were in the COVID time and things were kind of planned out. But a big takeaway is that Ward 3's always seen steady growth, which, and it's always been in single family residential unit, which is great. I like it like that. It showcases kind of how the free market should work, that with demand driving development naturally, not having to rely on governments pushing their way into it. And once again, Ward 3 had the most growth. So there's an opportunity here to encourage the high density projects in Ward 1 and 4, kind of where they should be, and let Ward 3 continue naturally. Thanks.
Councillor Hammond.
Yes, and through you, Your Worship, I'm looking at the single family residences and then the which there seems to be a fair number but the multiple residential where we have 2, 4 for the year. How many residents are we receiving from those 4 multiple residential?
To Councillor Hammond, those are numbers of permits, not numbers of multi-residential units. So I can certainly follow up and indicate of the 4 in the year, what does that come out to be in terms of number of units is what I
Right.
believe you're asking. Yeah, I can follow up via email, no problem.
In favor? And that is carried. Economic Development Community Improvement Plan, looking for a mover and a seconder that the Economic Development Report be received for information. Moved by Councilor McGuire Blaze, supported by Councilor Allard and Director Chadwick, if you just want to share some highlights.
Thank you once again, Mayor Bondi. So the purpose of this report is to provide council with an annual summary of CIP applications for the prior year, in this case, 2024. So most of you know a Community Improvement Plan, or CIP, is a tool under the Planning Act that municipalities have as a means to facilitating redevelopment, renewal, rehabilitation, improvement, et cetera, through financial incentive-based programs. In the case of the town of Essex, although the CIP programs in Essex Center and Harrow are no longer active, the Colchester and County Road 50 CIP program is still active until 2027. So page 2 of the report lists the various businesses that received CIP funding in 2024, the particulars of the grant program, and the value of that grant. As a friendly reminder, businesses who are eligible for a particular grant called the Tax Increment Finance Grant, they can stay on our books for a few years, up to 5 years, which is depending, of course, on their application and their eligibility, which is why you will see a business in Harrow that is still on this list, even though the Harrow CIP currently is no longer active. So in total, in 2024, 5 businesses were dispersed grants in a total of approximately $90,000. For more information on the CIP program in Colchester and County Road 50, we encourage businesses to contact our manager of ECDEV, Nelson Silvera, at ecdev@essex.ca, or of course referring to the town's microsite, which is specific to economic development and where we have a lot of great information on the CIP under the Build banner under our main website. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'm just wondering if you could explain to me what a tax incremental financing grant is. I've seen it on there. I meant to email you about it today and I didn't get around to it, so if you could explain that, I appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, through you, Madam Mayor. So the tax increment finance grant is, to put it in some terms that we can kind of relate to, if there is an expansion to an existing business, the tax assessment or the tax base for that property is likely to increase in value. So the incremental increase, the town will provide a grant for up to 5 years on that increase. For example, if your property tax assessment was, let's say, valued at $100,000, you built an addition onto that industry or that commercial business, and the value increased and the property tax increased by 30. For the case of up to 5 years, you could receive grants every year for up to $30,000. If there's anything else for Director Drew to add, I think that does kind of sum it up.
Council, all in favor? And that is carried. Capital Works and Asset Management 2025-03, the CLI ECA Amherstburg Access Agreement for Masaccio Drive. This is, I believe, exactly what we did for Ducharme. The same thing. Looking for a mover and a seconder, that the report be received and that council authorizes admin to enter into authorization agreement for phase 2 of Masaccio Drive development with the town of Amherstburg as attached. Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor Mady. Any questions? All in favor? And that is carried. Legal and Legislative Services, removal of personal items in cemeteries, will go to Director Malanjukulo.
Through you, the town has a bylaw that helps to control the amount of personal items that are placed in cemeteries and the amount of time that they stay there. We have found over time that we need a policy to help enforce this bylaw. So what we're bringing in item 10.9 is the policy to help enforce the bylaw. The reason for it is because personal items have been accumulating, causing health and safety issues for our contractors and for people visiting the cemeteries. So this will allow us to enforce our bylaw and make sure that any items that are there past the bylaw date are able to be removed in accordance with the policy.
Hey, Madam Mayor, I'm speaking to everything tonight, I think. Yeah, just a quick question on that. I know I've got some family members that have family members in some of our graveyards, and they do have a lot of personal items that they put on there. So when I saw this, I reached out to them to let them know that, you probably should take these things that are important to you and bring it home. Are we sending out any type of messaging on our Facebook? Is there anything we can do? Because I really hate to see, because I know how important it is to those people that have family members there, that if their personal items went missing, we would probably receive a lot of angry phone calls. I was just wondering if we could take that extra step to find some way of messaging to let them know so that we don't have so many unhappy people with that move.
We plan to post signs in the cemeteries, making people aware of the new policy. There have been signs previously, and people are aware that there are rules, but we're going to post some new signs saying that the policy is in place and that items will be removed if they're there past the policy dates. And we will put some stuff on social media so that it gets advertised.
Thank you, through the chair. So, I was just wondering, what is the period of time? So what I read was like the holidays, like Mother's Day, Christmas, etc. But what about like a deceased person's birthday or anniversary, death date? We don't typically know those dates. So is there like, you can put a teddy bear there on a birthday for 30 days? Like how do we judge that? Like who says that? And will that date be posted? Like, thanks.
There are specific dates in the bylaw and in the policy. Without referring to the policy, I believe it is either 30 or 60 days. We have a caretaker who's there permanently, and the caretaker monitors all of that. And in practice, what the caretaker's been most worried about are things that may turn into projectiles when we're trying to maintain the grave sites, or things that prohibit access to other grave sites and actual burial sites. So they address those things first, and then the other things that are in the policy are addressed primarily if they are creating issues for the caretaker.
Yes, and through you, worship, as a longtime residents of Harrow and Colchester, we're quite familiar with the strict laws concerning our graveyards, and that's, you don't leave anything around your commemoration that will prohibit the upkeep of the landscape around there. So, but I understand newer residents might not be aware of our bylaw, so I would appreciate something up to date that people can review on an ongoing basis, especially when they're entering into a cemetery.
Mover and a seconder that the legal and legislative services be received and that council adopt legal and legislative services policy entitled removal of personal items in cemeteries. Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor Allard. Any further questions? All in favor, and that is carried. Reports from our youth members.
Nothing to report this week.
Right.
Mayor, County Council update.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you. January 15th, County Council update. Essex County Council and local municipalities are receiving extra candidate community building fund money due to fewer than expected administration costs in 2024. The Association of Municipalities of Ontario released the surplus funds, with 80% going to local municipalities. Essex County was allotted $89,691, and of that, $53,815 will be distributed to the municipalities per capita basis. We entered into an agreement with Red Cross. Council has approved that agreement with the Red Cross to be on standby for the emergencies in the region. The Red Cross will provide essential services like food, water, and clothing, and medical supplies during major crises. This agreement, shared with the city of Windsor, covers 2024 through 2026. and costs the county $21,888 annually. Additional costs will apply if the Red Cross is activated during emergency. In January, county representative went to Roma and met with Ontario government officials at Roma Conference in Toronto. For those watching, Roma's Rural Ontario Municipal Association. They advocated for 3 key issues: funding for grade-separated interchanges on County Road 22 at County Road 19 and L'Esperance Road, support to expand County Road 19 to 4 lanes in partnership with Tecumseh, and transferring additional operation control of the Windsor Central Ambulance Communications Center to the county, enabling Essex Windsor EMS to manage daily operations. Supportive Housing Program, County Council directed administration to begin a formal procurement process for intensive care supportive housing program, including short-term contract with the service provider until the process is complete. The City of Windsor administers the program's funding, and the county has not used municipal funds for it so far. Additionally, council voted to request increased provincial funding for homeless and prevention and invited local MPPs to future meeting to discuss the matter. Just a few more things and I'm done. Contact for county councilors just got a little easier. An online form will be hosted on the County of Essex website that allows a resident to send a message to all members of county council at once. The communication at the same time will be sent to the clerk and the chief administrative officer. Previously, there was no way for residents to contact all members of county council and except by inputting individual email address. I will note this was an initiative of our Mayor Bondi. Lastly, this coming week, County Council will address a discovered omission of Resolution 344-204, which was my motion, that we would have reduced the levy by $400,000, has been led to a discrepancy in the intended budget and will be corrected. This budget oversight this week. The county tax increase will change from 3.76% to 3.48%, and that's my county.
Council report, Deputy Mayor. It's almost like you're a CAO up here. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the County of Essex regular council meeting minutes listed in agenda item 12 be received. Moved by Councillor Hammond, supported by Councillor McGuire Blaze. Any questions? All in favor? And that is carried. Correspondence, we will go through all of it, and then if members of council wish to pull out some certain ones, they can. Looking for a motion to receive all of the correspondence in 13.1. Councillor Mady, Deputy Mayor Shepley, all in favor, and that is carried. Any members of council wish to pull out any correspondence? Councillor Verbeek.
Through you, Madam Mayor. 13.1.2 from the township of, I want to make sure I have the right one about child welfare. Yes, it's from the township of Brudden now. And it's just a letter to the provincial government asking for fairer and better funding for child welfare. And the town of Aurora, their request for support for the provincial land transfer tax and GST to municipalities for sustainable infrastructure funding. If we could just support those and send letters of our own.
Okay, Councillor Verbeek will do them just one at a time to ensure we have council support. So 13.1.2 regarding the child welfare, that we send a letter back in support and to all of our people, supported by the Deputy Mayor. Any questions on that one? All in favor? And that is carried. And the second one is 13.1.6. The town of Aurora request for support for provincial land tax and GST to municipalities for sustainable infrastructure funding. I need a move by Councillor Verbeek and supported by Councillor McGuire Blaze. Any questions for this? If we need to, our Director of Corporate Services can explain it. If not, all in favor? And that is carried. Correspondence to be considered. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hammond. Yep.
Your worship, item 13.1.1, I would like to share this letter with the Ontario, our municipal housing, affordable housing task force, if we could.
Director Chadwick, are you able to send the city of Peterborough to the data room of the Affordable Housing Task Force?
Thank you.
Anything further, council? Okay, correspondence to be received and supported. Santa's Village Committee resignation with regret of Richard Tapping from the Santa's Village Committee, needing a mover and a seconder that council direct administration to write a letter of appreciation and thanking him for his commitment to the Santa's Village Committee. Moved by Councilor McGuire Blaze, supported by Councilor Mady. All in favor? And that is carried. Essex Optimist Club, flag request from the Essex Optimist Club, Optimist Day, February 6, 2025. That the request for the Essex Optimist Club be received and supported. Looking for council direction. To receive and support. Councilor McGuire Blaze.
I would like to receive and support.
Okay, moved by Councilor McGuire Blaze, supported by Councilor Verbeek. Any questions? All in favor? That is carried. Committee meeting minutes. Looking to adopt the committee meeting minutes and receive them, approve them, adopt them as circulated. We have the Essex Center BIA, the Essex Municipal Heritage, the Santa's Village Committee, Committee of Adjustment, and Finance Committee. Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councilor Hammond. Questions, comments to those minutes? Councilor Hammond?
I just want to take you a minute to acknowledge the Municipal Heritage Committee. We've been informed that the committee's works this year has put us head and shoulders above other communities in regards to their preserving a heritage and the commitments that have been set out by the province. Special thanks needs to go to Cheyenne Melu, who is our primary researcher, and the support she's getting from Rita Jabbar and Marsha Bucha as well. Thank the three of them. They make our committee so productive. It's amazing.
On our minutes. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Under notice of motion, we will go to Director Malin-Jucolo.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. Through you. The following notice of motion was presented at the January 13, 2025 regular council meeting and is being brought forward this evening for council's consideration. Moved by Councilor McGuire Blaze, that council direct administration to provide a report on the status of negotiations with the Ministry of Transportation Ontario on the sidewalk expansion on South Talbot from the Cipher Systems Group Greenway to Reed Street and the Hanlon Road expansion, and that the report should include information and timelines on the funding the town is expected to receive from the MTO for both projects.
By Councilor Hammond, Councilor McGuire Blaze.
It's been many years since the Hanlon expansion was proposed, and to my knowledge, it was supposed to be done in tandem with the opening of the Highway 3 road expansion and the closure of Victoria on-ramp to Highway 3. So Victoria's been closed for several years and we're nowhere close to even starting the Hanlon expansion. So I think that we deserve some answers. The town of Ward 1 deserves to know where we're at, what the holdup is, and why that road hasn't been done yet. So I just would like a formal report done. I know emails have gone back and forth between administration and council, but I think the public has a right to know what's going on with that road. As well as the sidewalk, there was some confusion last year in thinking that that sidewalk was going to be put in or at least budgeted for 2025. And that didn't happen. We don't even have drawings or anything for it. So I think that, again, the public is looking to find out where that sidewalk is, because that's a dangerous part of the road that's used so often. It definitely deserves a sidewalk, and why one wasn't put there in the beginning is beyond us at this point, but we do deserve to know where we're at. And I asked for how much we're expected to receive, because if the MTO is going to say, we're going to give you $3 million, and I'm just throwing a number out there, we're going to give you X amount of dollars, but we're not going to do it until 2028. Maybe it's something that we can put into our budget for 2026 with the expectation that that money is coming to us. So that is why I asked for what are we expecting from the MTO? What are we waiting out on? Are we waiting out on $100,000? Because if that's the case, then why are we waiting? So that's the reason why I asked.
Questions? I think it's easy to support your motion. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Director Malinjuklo.
Mayor Bondi, through you, the following notice of motion was presented at the January 13, 2025 regular council meeting and is being brought forward this evening for council's consideration. Moved by Councilor McGuire Blaze, whereas in 2023, the Association of Municipalities Ontario with industry partners began advocating for a timely return to the assessment cycle, given that outdated assessments can be inaccurate, increase volatility, and are not fully transparent. And whereas a result of this advocacy was a letter from the Minister of Finance Office, Peter Bethelfalvy, stating that a review of the property assessment and taxation system would be conducted and therefore reassessment would be deferred until such review was completed. And whereas to date, no further information has been provided on a potential reassessment or findings on the review of the system, now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Essex direct administration to send a letter to the local MPP office, MPAC representatives, and the Office of the Minister of Finance, with AMO included for receipt, requesting a status update on the property taxation and assessment review and timelines for the introduction of the next reassessment cycle.
Supported by Councillor Guerin. Councillor McGuire Blaze.
You again through the chair. So again, we haven't had an assessment since 2016, and I understand that it was on hold because of COVID, but we're now going on 2 terms without a proper assessment, and our prices of housing in 2025 are vastly different than the prices of housing in 2016. So right now our new builds are being assessed at a much greater level than some of the homes who have been assessed at 2016. So for example, I'm going to use my own home. I built a new home in 2021. That home is assessed at 2016 level, but the cost of my house in 2021 was $530,000. In 2016, had I built a $530,000 home, it would have been a mansion. I live in a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom ranch. And so my tax assessment is more than double the amount of the 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom ranch I moved from that was built 25 years ago. So because of the way the assessment is working, everybody who is living in a newer home built prior to or after 2016 are being taxed at a much higher tax rate than anybody who has an older home. So the tax rate is unfair. Our provincial government did say that they were looking at revamping the MPAC assessment. The MPAC assessment we have heard nothing. They haven't talked about unfreezing it. They haven't told us what the new program is going to look like or how they're going to reassess and how they're going to roll out reassessing every single home in a municipality at one time. Because if they don't roll it out at one time, then again, you're going to have pockets of people who are reassessed and they're going to be treated unfairly to the people who haven't been reassessed. So what's the plan? I feel like at this point, they should have a plan in place and we need to start putting pressure on them to make that plan public and start executing their plan.
Thanks for members of council. I did see our MPP at a finance meeting I delegated at, and I did talk to him, and I know there's some emails going back and forth, and they don't know what they're going to do. And that he admitted that there's no silver magical bullet here. And in one of the emails that he wrote, he said, one of the unintended consequences of taking such an action would be a sudden increase in property taxes payable on homes. There are many people who would not be able to keep pace with sudden increase in property taxes, especially if their homes were immediately assessed at double or triple the previous value. The consequences would fall particularly hard on elderly people. The MPAC system is not perfect. The Ontario government has tried to make life more affordable. And, they talk about gasoline and, eliminating our license fee plates. But yeah, I've never seen anything like this MPAC frozen for so long. Director Drusevich.
Thank you through the chair. Just a couple of quick comments. Administration is starting to hear feedback from residents that would support a reassessment as well. So we are having residents at the counter with the exact same complaints. My neighbor's property taxes are X. I built, 5 years past and mine are triple what they're paying. we have to point them to MPAC, right, as the evaluators. When it comes to the impact that it could have on households, the province, when they issue a reassessment, must put tools in place so there's no drastic shock to people. So when the 2016 reassessment happened, tax capping was introduced, which meant you can only increase them by a certain amount. You can't drastically shock their income or their property taxes. So there are tools. It's just a matter of the province looking at how they want to implement those tools and what they're going to bring forward.
Councillor Hammond.
Sounds almost as if Impact saying if you can afford to build a new house, you can afford to pay higher taxes.
Makes it harder for people to build new homes. Any further comments from members of council? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that's carried unanimously. Director Malandrucolo.
Bondi, through you. The following notices of motion are for presentment only and will be brought forward for council's consideration at the February 18, 2025 regular council meeting. Moved by Councillor Verbeek that council directed administration to provide a report on an amendment to bylaw 1605, being an agreement with Harrow Healthcare to lease space in the McGregor Community Center to incorporate 2 hours of weekly programming times at no charge as part of the agreement. Moved by Mayor Bondi that council direct administration to provide a high-level report on the condition and operational capacity of the town's sanitary treatment facilities. Moved by Mayor Bondi that council direct administration to prepare a report on 1, the current winter control service levels for the downtown core areas, including a detailed breakdown of the existing service standards, cost estimates and budget impacts associated with increasing the service levels, the projected effect of these changes on the annual public works operating budget and tax base. And number 2, an overview of the winter control bylaw, specifically current responsibilities of businesses in relation to snow removal in front of their properties and any potential gaps or challenges associated with the enforcement of these responsibilities.
Councillor Guerin, we'll start with you for announcements. Councillor Hammond.
Thank you. And through you, just to build on the terrific work the Heritage Committee is doing, February 17th will start the Heritage Week. There's an open house at the Canadian Transportation Museum. It's going to have some displays, heritage programs, heritage grants. There's going to be meetings with the members of the heritage organizations. And the part of the new is going to be the heritage grants. So these grants aren't typically, there's not too much competition for these grants. It is a $500 grant. And normally we've been able to give the grant money to everybody that's applied. So it would be a great thing for a young person that has a little interest in heritage to put together the resources and get that grant. Thanks.
Through you, Madam Mayor, this is a little out of my lane, or out of our lane, and it's something I thought I should read tonight. In light of the potential unwarranted tariffs imposed on Canada by our closest ally, United States, which I found out just prior to our meeting 30 minutes before, that we have a 30-day window before they'll be implemented. It's more important than ever to support our own economy by choosing Canadian-made products and services. We not only strengthen our local businesses, but also send a powerful message, and unfortunately, message of unity and resilience. Let's stand together and show the world that Canada thrives when we support each other. Every purchase counts, so let's all make it Canadian. Next, I would like to touch on one other, because of this, the Canadian government must reconsider, our federal government must reconsider the carbon tax, which is a financial burden on everyday Canadians. This tax, effectively a tariff imposed by our own government, disproportionately affects hardworking families, seniors, and small businesses struggling with rising costs of living at a time when affordability is crucial concern. Looming tariffs from the USA is essential to prioritize policies that support Canadians without penalizing them. I urge the federal government to end all carbon tax today. We need to end the undue strain on Canadians. It's time to end the carbon tax and pull together for all the Canadians. And that's my message.
Thank you, council. We do have a couple topics on the county council agenda if you want to tune into them in advance. One is the Leamington to Windsor bus. Essex Council did commit some money in budget, but Leamington to Windsor bus is asking for money from the county of Essex now. So if it doesn't get money from county council, it could be in jeopardy. So that's one file to pay attention to. And there is also a Phragmites report, which I have not read yet because I was busy today, on our county council agenda to talk about Phragmites control across the county, which I did send to the rest of council because I know in particular Councillor Mady has an interest in it. So you take a peek at the county agenda and get up to date on those issues. Bylaws requiring a third and final reading. Bylaw 2413 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the January 13th regular meeting of council to be read a third and finally passed on February 3rd. Moved by Councillor Hammond, supported by Councillor Mady. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Bylaws requiring a first, second, third, final reading. Bylaw 2414 being a bylaw to adopt the 2025 operating capital budget estimate. Moved by Councillor Verbeek, supported by Councillor Mady. All in favor? That's carried. Bylaw 2415 being a bylaw to provide for an interim tax levy and provide for payment of taxes and provide for penalty and interest be read a first, second, third time, finally passed on February 3rd. Needing a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Maguire Blaze and Councillor Verbeek. All in favor? That's carried. Bylaw 2322 to designate community safety zones within the corporation of the town of Essex to be read a first, second, third time, finally passed on February 3rd. Moved by Councillor Hammond, supported by Councillor Mady. All in favor? And that's carried. Bylaw 2417 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a lease agreement between the corporation of the town of Essex and Never Rest Farms for leasing vacant land for the purpose of farming located on lots 31 to 33 North Malden Road in Essex. Be read a first, second, third time, finally passed. Deputy Mayor Shepley. Councillor Mady and Councillor Hammond has a question.
Yes, I have a question regarding this lease. Question is, why is it so low for the 40 acres?
Through your Mayor Bonnie, are you asking why the price we're paying is so low or the price we're receiving is so low? Can you just clarify what you're...
Well, are we receiving or are we paying?
There's two scenarios. There's a situation where we receive funding for them to farm the land, which is a continuation of the lease agreement that was done before. And there's a situation where if there's crop loss, then we would have to pay for that crop loss, which is based on the OMAPR rates. So these were rates that were negotiated with the proponent that they've already been utilizing for the past 5 years. And that's what they were willing to pay us for the land for them to farm on it.
The reason I ask, because when I ask farmers that I know of the price of farmland, at least they say that that's considerably cheaper than what a normal farm would be getting, which is closer to $200 to $300 an acre.
Through Mayor Bonnie, that doesn't seem, from the information that I received from the farmer, of what they are willing to pay. If council doesn't want to authorize this and they want to seek other potential farmers for the property, then we can certainly look at doing that. It's council's direction if they want to proceed.
Thank you, through the chair. We put out a request for proposal on this, don't we? Like, we put it out for tender for farmers to bid on it. Yes?
Through your Mayor Bonnie, so this time was not because it was a renewal of an existing lease agreement that's been going on for the past 5 years. So when we have renewals, we don't put them out because they've already gone out for public consideration. So in this circumstance, it wasn't just based on that. Is standard for all our facilities. Like if we engage in a lease agreement with a concession stand, for instance, in one of our facilities, then upon renewal, it's almost like first right of refusal, where they would be able to get the first right of refusal to see if they want to continue or not. If they decided not to continue, then we would go out to RFP.
To Councillor Hammond, I did also want to mention that Director Morissette asked me to review some parts of this lease. The lease is a town-friendly lease and incorporates some things in the lease that allow the town to do some things that are more flexible than what's in a traditional lease. So you may not have so many people interested in a lease like this. So it could be a reason why we have to go with a reduced lease rate, because we're asking the tenant to do some things that not every tenant would want to do.
That explanation, I asked council if we're, have the appetite to, explore, other options for leasing, not this year, but following year, perhaps. We could look into, getting a better bang for our buck, maybe, now that it's been 5 years. That's a suggestion anyways.
I feel like that Director Morissette's explanation was sufficient for me. I think that you should have first right of refusal, and then when they're, just like our other facilities, when they're ready to move on, then we would put it out to tender, I would think.
Other things for council to keep in mind. The reason why this is important for the municipality is because they're farming the property, which makes sure that it's going to control the weeds that are growing around. So the intention of this property is to eventually develop it into the sports complex. But as we either phase in, we're taking sections of land potentially every year, depending on council's budget authorizations, where we'd be removing those lands from the farmer. So as we continue to grow and grow that property, the amount of land that they're going to have able to farm becomes less and less bulk. So they're actually reducing their economies of scale by doing this. And it's really a control mechanism for us, because we're not able to maintain a property of that size in terms of weeds. So we would have to get some significant equipment to be able to do that in-house. So it's mutually beneficial. It has the economic impact for the farmer and the community, because they're able to harvest the crop, and it also helps with the maintenance of our own property.
Prepared to support it tonight, but now, since the questioning, I am curious about how many other vacant properties we have that we actually tender out for farming, because I think we have a couple other ones. We can discuss it at another time. Maybe we can round table it or something. Okay, we have a mover and a seconder for that, Director. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Bylaw 2419 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 224, the bylaw to regulate parking in the town of Essex. That bylaw 2419 be read a first, second, third time, finally passed on February 3rd. Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor Verbeek. All in favor? And that is carried. Bylaws requiring a first and second reading, bylaw 2418 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the February 3rd, 2025 regular meeting of council in the corporation of the town of Essex. Be read a first, second, and provisionally adopted on February 3rd. Moved by Councillor Mady, supported by Councillor Allard. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you for joining us tonight, and I need a motion to adjourn. Deputy Mayor Shepley. Councillor McGuire Blaze, all in favor. And that is carried. Have a good evening.